Hey, nice to meet you, Saravana. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Pradeep. Yeah, nice to see you as well.
Great, great. This is going to be a really fiery chat, right? So there are like handful of companies in India that have gone to a $10 million of ARR, right? And there's like in that handful, there's a really little full who have actually scaled it through a bootstrapping way, right? And it's like a real honor to have you here. And thank you for the opportunity, like SaaS Insider, for this, right? So let's get straight to it. Uh, with the first question, right? The question that comes in the mind of like lots of, right? So a few months back, if you know, like many people in India, even in like Chennai, did not know about who you were, right? And what did the Kowai do, right? And suddenly, right now, you've gotten a celebrity level status, right? With scaling a bootstrapping company to a global level from Coimbatore and on the path to getting to $10 million ARR, right? Did you see or plan this coming your way?
Yeah, I won't say we planned everything. Like I think that's the case with any startup entrepreneur, right? Like you can't have financial goals as a motivation to start a company. If you start with that objective, you're guaranteed to be there are more chances of being a failure. You start the company because you wanted to solve a pain point or a problem what you see surrounding you, and you wanted to take that problem and see how best you can solve it. And that's exactly what happened. When I started the company, it's not even, I won't say it's a company. Like I'm coming from more a technical background. Like I'm a hardcore tech guy, still write code. I own some certain parts of the core frameworks and stuff like that. So the first product, the Bootstrap 360, was actually started more like a hobby project. Like a bunch of people. We decided like we will do it as an open source thing because we saw a problem in this enterprise space and nobody turned up. And I just continued building it, and then I published it. And then through my blog, I had a really good blog that time. And then through that channel, I published it, and people were excited about what I was solving, and that's how the whole thing got started. And revenue, you never keep revenue as an objective. Like it's always like how can we solve the problem well, and how can we serve our customers well, and we keep listening to them and keep improving them. And that's exactly what happened. And that's what will actually happen to a lot of your startups. You solve the problem and the revenue will come on the sideline. And after some time, once you get stabilized, you really don't worry too much about the revenue side, especially for a bootstrap company. We don't have anybody to answer. We don't need to send reports every month to VCs and justify why didn't you miss this quarter. We don't have anything, right? So we just focus more and more on solving the problem and doing what we love. In fact, the other important reason for me to start a company is basically, there are a lot of folks like me, who got, tied into this corporate red tape kind of setup where they can't express themselves. They end up, they have so much potential, but due to the nature of the corporate nature, like they can't really express what they wanted to do. And that is also how we run the company. Like we give a lot of freedom to the people who you're working with, and trying to explore their capabilities and bring them out. And we run it in a very, very lenient way. The way that we run the company, there are various factors. So definitely, in answer to your question, money is not the key motivator for us to start it yet.
That is awesome. Like, tell me about it, right? So because like I've seen companies like that spend close to a month every quarter, right, working for board reports. Like you lose a whole month in the quarter, then focusing on your customers, just creating reports, right? So that's fantastic, right? So the second thing, right, that made me wonder, like specifically because there's a myth going around that if you're starting up something that's really cool, you want to scale it on a global level, right? You can never do it from a tier 2 city, right? In fact, like Chennai was also not a SaaS hub like few couple of years before, right? So it's companies like Freshworks, like Chargebee that have made a difference, right? But whenever entrepreneurs start from here, they get an advice that, hey, you know what, you have now moved to Bangalore, right? And then you have to take it to the valley where the giants are, right? But how did you get this radical idea of like starting from a tier 2 city and scaling it to a global level from Coimbatore?
Okay, I think the honest answer will be the challenges are still there. It's not a smooth ride building a team out of Coimbatore and then scaling it to a global level. So in our case, I will say there are various factors. It's not like complete 100% of the team is not based out of Coimbatore. So I, for example, live in London, and we have a core team about 10 people here out of London. And it actually, it's a long journey in terms of mentoring and nurturing people, like educating them and bringing them ideas and also exposing them as well. Like we constantly bring people from Coimbatore to London every year. So we run a global event in our space called Integrate. So that's been attended by about 500, 600 people from 50, 60 countries every year. In June, we run this event in London. So every year we bring about 15, 20 people from our Coimbatore office here, and they allow them to mingle with the customers and the people whom they're talking to in support and emails. They get a chance to meet, and they get the exposure. And every time they come here, they understand the scale at which the company is operating. It's a combination of various things. You need to have a right set of top management as well in the company for them to guide people, next level of people, and nurture them. So I won't say if you're purely coming out of Coimbatore and if you've never seen the outside world and you're just a lot of startups, that's what's happening, right? Like a couple of years university, you came out of university, you start something, and then you think you can scale it to a global level. I think that experience what we had in the team with the top management level helped us to fill those gaps. And after that, we initially struggled. The first 2-3 years we were struggling because to convince anybody to come and work on a startup where you don't have any brand visibility or people don't know how big you are, it was very difficult for first 3 years. But once you have the initial set of the 15, 20 people and you can, you identify the raw talents to join your team. And from then onwards, they guide the next set of people, and it becomes like a snowball effect. And that's what happened now. Now we are about 150 people. And we are proud to say, we still got the original set of people who joined us at the very early stage. Now, every year we see 6th anniversary and 7th anniversary, like that kind of thing coming. It's nice to see people are staying there. But there are a lot of positive things as well, keeping the company on the tier 2 cities. Attrition is another thing. If they love the company because you give them everything required, right? Good infrastructure, cutting edge technology. You are doing something exciting in the SaaS space, and maybe there are not that many opportunities in Coimbatore to for them to explore and go. Most of the time, people leaving us, they leave. They want to explore in something in Bangalore or Chennai, or they wanted to work for Microsoft. A lot of people gone to Microsoft. It's actually it's a really proud thing for us, right? Like we produce that kind of talent where they can observe in companies like Microsoft to take it. So there are advantages in tier 2 as well. The attrition, I will say, is one thing, and the loyalty, and people enjoy. That's what we wanted. They don't get stuck in traffic for 2 hours each way in live in Bangalore or something. Most of them very close by, and then they love the environment, and those are the advantages of if you execute it well, there's a great opportunity to build world-class companies out of tier 2 cities.
Interesting. So bootstrapping is extremely hard, right? So sometimes even survival becomes a question, right? Hey, do I have money to pay my employees, right? What if this customer doesn't pay on time? Can I still satisfy my payroll, right? All of these challenges generally are faced and heard by bootstrap entrepreneurs, right? So what were some of the key challenges that you faced or still facing as a bootstrap entrepreneur?
Okay, I will say again, bootstrapping may not be suitable for everybody. It depends on the type of product you are dealing with. So in our case, the original product, Bootstrap 360, luckily it was an enterprise product. It's still its biggest revenue comes from Bootstrap 360. It's an enterprise product, and we had a very lean team at that moment. And first 30 customers, I was just alone. I did everything myself. And then after that, I scaled the team in UK to about 5 people out of my living room. We didn't have any office space or anything. First couple of years, I just run the entire company in my office room. But luckily, I managed to convince some high-profile people, like people. I convinced somebody from Microsoft to resign and come and work for me in my living room. So, yeah, I think addressing the point, when you have an enterprise product, the ticket sizes were anywhere from 10 to 50K kind of a ticket size is for every sale. So even if you close like 10, 12 customers, it gives a significant runway because it's a lot of cash. Like when you're a small team, 10 12, less than 10 people team, so give a lot of runway. That is how it worked out well for us, how we managed to bootstrap. In the initial days, there's a lot of inflow coming from the customers paying us a lot of money, and then the team size was lean, and we don't have any expensive things like office spaces or anything. And also, we didn't have a lot of money spent on customer acquisition as well, because we were on a very niche product and niche market. So the customer acquisition cost was not there. So that's how we were able to build a scale a bootstrap company. But some of our recent products, for example, Document 360 is a self-service knowledge base with the average revenue per user is around $100 per month. If you are going after this kind of product, there is very little scope for you to bootstrap this company, because you can imagine how many customers you need to acquire before you can become sustainable, right? And also acquiring those customers in a competitive space is expensive. The cost of acquiring customers is extremely high for a product like Document 360. So that product will not be suitable for a bootstrap company. You really need to have funding. Our cost of acquisition is somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000 per customer. So where are you going to get those money from, right? So if for people listening and who are thinking about should I bootstrap or should I go with the VC route, you need to analyze carefully, because not all the products can be bootstrapped. So you need to have the big ticket products for you to be successfully bootstrapping a company.
Got it. So why did you decide to bootstrap them, right? That's what, now that you've covered on what is the right way and who should bootstrap, right? So when you started this out, right, initially there is an initial market traction that people have a methodology in SaaS to figure out whether this is going to be enterprise or SMB, but still there's a question of not knowing it all, right? So with this amount of initial traction, how and why did you decide to bootstrap? And how were you able to manage all the temptation that's floating around, right? So that there's a ton of VC cash that's going out here and there, and every time there's tech runs saying that, hey, this company has raised 50 million, that company has raised 30 million, right? How are you able to control all of the temptation, right? So, yeah.
Okay, again, in our case, it's a kind of, we didn't make any hard decision, like we won't take VC money. It just happened in that way. So as I mentioned, the initial cash flow was there, so we didn't have a necessity for us to, go get the money. And also I mentioned, the acquiring customers is it's completely different. When you're in a niche market, the way you acquire customers is a typical saying, in a completely non-scalable way. So you go one by one. You deal with customer by customer, and that's how you acquire the customers. And the second point why we didn't take money is basically, we can't convince any VCs with that product saying, okay, we need money to scale, because they won't even understand. And most of the VCs, they need exits in 3 to 5 years time. They want 5x to 7x exit. And when the market size is very narrow, because of the original product, Bootstrap 360, the total addressable market is only 10,000 customers, because we were building a product on top of Microsoft Bootstrap server. Microsoft themselves got only about 10,000 customers, and our plan was, to acquire about 20% of the market share. So we are about 700, 800 now. So we still got room to grow, but that is not really, attractive offer from a VC perspective, because they need. When are you going to get the 20 million, 30 million, or even 100 million companies is what VCs are after. So that is another reason. And for us, honestly, if somebody gave us 5, 10 million money, we wouldn't have known where to spend it, because there are only very few products where you have proper product market fit, and it's a very competitive space where you can throw money in paid channels and get the leads. That is different from when you're working on a very niche market like Bootstrap server, Bootstrap 360. So you can't really, throw more money and get more leads. So that's also a reason. So again, I've seen a lot of arguments here about bootstrap versus VC. I will say you need to take it case by case, because every business is different, every product is different, your scenarios are different. So you shouldn't take a blunt decision. Okay, I'll go bootstrap, I'll go VC. So look at the conditions, where you want to go, how you're going to get there, and then make the decision. So if you have good traction, and there's nothing wrong if I can throw 100,000 and get 200,000 back. You need more money for certain businesses.
Totally. Like, I'm glad you said that, because like I was watching one of Sridhar's interview earlier. Like, whenever we say bootstrapping, was the thing that comes to our mind. And initially, like, they were the very interesting case, just like how COVID, like having a product called Web and Hours. Even now, that's making only $2 million. But with that, you pump money for manage engine, right? He made it like really big. Then a behemoth, Zoho, right? So we keep pumping money, and VCs are not interested in that kind of money, because they are looking like that. They are not wrong as well, right? But they're looking at short term, like an exit in 25 years, right? So yeah, that's a very interesting way and thought process as well, right? And now, like, this is a very interesting question, not just for bootstrapped entrepreneurs, but even for funded entrepreneurs, right? Because like any company, when you take, whenever the company is launching multiple products, there comes a question of focus, right? Like, hey, should I just take one product and then scale it like really big, or should I just go on a diversified portfolio and then start acquiring customers? Now, you are already a multi-product company. So what is the advice that you give to entrepreneurs or even execs out there saying, hey, this is the exact process you need to do to retain focus, right? If you're a multi-product company, or is it even possible to retain focus?
Okay. My advice will be to stick with single product for as long as possible. That's what we did actually until 2016. So the company was started in 2010 to 11 period, including development time. So until 2016, we didn't have any product. All the focus was completely on this one product, Bootstrap 360, and we were acquiring customers at a steady pace. The revenue was growing, and it was just going smooth. So we reached a point after 6-7 years worth of development. There's only so much you can do on the product, right? It's mature. Like you have reached a saturation point in terms of what can be developed in that product. Or anything after that, you're only like cluttering and then bombarding with features which nobody wants and that kind of thing. It reached that level of maturity. And that point, I need to make a decision, right? Over 6 years, you've built a solid team, and they are like rock solid engineering resources. And being an engineer myself, I know you can't, you'll get bored. Like you can't just keep doing the same thing after 6 years. So, and also when referring back to my original previous answers, one of the goal is to cut down the red tape and make people more productive and make use of their skill set, right? So when I have that kind of a vision, I can't relate it back saying, okay, we'll continue doing this one product. It's a bit boring, but we'll still carry on. It's getting revenue. That is what triggered us to start looking at, okay, what else can we do? Then we thought, okay, we have done this for this product, and Microsoft Azure is coming big, and we can see similar kind of problems there. Why don't we do why don't we solve the same kind of problem at a bigger scale? And that's how the second product, Serverless 360, started. And in 2017, when we are doing documentation for this Bootstrap 360 and Serverless 360, we ourselves experienced some serious challenges. How people can maintain a self-service knowledge base. And we looked at the market, and nobody is solving that problem well. There are like 3-4 companies who are doing reasonably well, but their product is not as good as we wanted, and that's where we spotted another opportunity, and then we started Document 360. So it's actually like like a sequence of steps that happened automatically. It was not in the original plan. We will create a multi-product company. That was not there. So it just it happened due to scenarios, and then now we got as we learned quite a bit as well, how to set up multi-product company where you have like a shared resources, where you have dedicated resources, all those kind of learnings. Now we are actually replicating, like similar to Freshworks. So now we have an engine and a model how to replicate, take a problem, assemble a team, and then pull some key resources to initially into that, and get to a stage, and then build a new team. So we got that engine going now. So that's how we turned into a multi-product company. But as general advice, like if somebody is starting new, until you get to like a couple of at least a few $1 million revenue, don't think about multi-product, because you will start diluting your resources, you'll dilute your funding across multiple products. It's not an ideal thing to do.
Totally, right? That's a great advice, because like if there's no traction with the first product, and then you're are little gaining to start traction, and then you just pump money into the whole new thing, it's just going to digress all of the focus, right? Which is like key for scaling. And the last question, right, which is like a question that I'm personally excited, right, because that's one of my ambitions too in the future. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this, which is starting up in 2020s, right? Which is like, hey, this whole next 10 years, right? There's a myth floating around, right? Just a myth that, hey, you know what? Starting up without cash in SaaS is close to improbable, right? It's not possible at all, right? That's the myth floating around. I don't know who spread that, but it's floating around, right? Because like there is a discoverability issue, there's a demand issue, there are like players issue, people will keep killing you, right? So all of this floating around. I have a simple question to you, right? What would be your piece of advice or your piece of thought to entrepreneurs who want to start a company? Like, can they bootstrap? If they have to, what are the things that they have to think through really well, right? Or should they go for funding for sure if they're starting up in SaaS?
Okay, I think I will say, like, 2020, starting something new it's getting harder and harder every year. The reason being, the cost of building stuff become very cheap now. Like with the invention of AWS and Azure and all this cloud technologies now, building a product becomes almost like a commodity now. Like you can put like 5-10 people, and you can build a very high quality product pretty easily in the sense, okay, 6 to 9 months period, you can actually replicate a really good product. That is not a problem. But that also brings, there are so many people out there trying to build things there, right? So that means it's just it became really crowded, and for you to stand out in the crowd and acquire customers has become expensive. So today, if you want to acquire a customer, if you wanted to make like a decent company out of it, you need funding. And okay, maybe it depends on the type of the product as well. If you're in a very niche market, there's not enough competition, you can build something and there's a big ticket thing, you can do it. But if you're getting it at some kind of a competitive product like a document 360 or help desk or like a chat or chatbot or things like that, you need money, and you need to have your own value proposition why somebody will buy from you. Maybe you can slice it in different ways as well. Maybe you're going after a very specific segment, maybe help desk for doctors or something like that. Until you have that, you need money. So I'll say, like, don't jump and do it. You think through completely. And also what's important is, it will take anywhere from 4 to 5 years for you to build a sustainable company. There's nothing called overnight success. You need to be prepared. Or do you have this backup and support to sustain that level of 4 or 5 years? Maybe once you have proven the product market fit and you're growing at, if you're adding like if you're growing month on month, if you're growing like 20-30% with your product, and even though it's a small, maybe you will be able to convince a VC to give you the funding. But you need to think through carefully. Like the key points here is look at the sustainability. How are you going to acquire the customers? Even getting good engineering resources is harder. Maybe it will look easy to do the first cut of your product, but once you get to a scale state, even we are seeing that in document 360, like building a product for 100 people is different from building a product that will be used by 10,000 people, right? You get a different kind of engineering challenges to scale to that level. So you need to think through everything, don't jump and burn yourself for a couple of years and then, drying out. So, think through. Maybe if you have a plan to start a company, first join somewhere, like there are a lot of good companies out there, gain that experience, and then you understand what you're going to go through for the next 4 years, and then build the company.
That's a great way to put it out, right? The market will decide. We're going after a behemoth market. There's a lot of crowd. Then rethink, focus on what is your plan. Or if you're going into niche, then get that experience to nail that execution of the niche. Then start out, right?